All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. The 100 Years' War, Christi Agincourt, the last honest war fought by men without excuses. Written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. The Disarmed Warrior, how developmental arrest turned men into boys, and the integral path to grow up and wake up. I watched a decorated engineer, a man who had built systems that kept cities running, apologize to a 30-something coordinator with a clipboard and a theory. The coordinator had never built anything. He was steam processed, polished, credentialed, fluent in the grammar of submission, and the engineer folded, attended the training, went quiet, stopped mentoring. I saw myself in that man not because I admired his restraint, but because I had been him. That surrender is the wound this essay opens. The theory behind the clipboard is called standpoint epistemology, and its trick is ancient dressed in new words. Your identity determines what you can know, and if your identity is wrong, your competence is blindness. The competent man must apologize not for failure, but for mastery. Hierarchy becomes a theater where the auditor never ships a product, and the builder confesses his hands are dirty. Truth kneels to narrative, and narrative is always written by whoever claims the most pain. But here's what I learned the hard way, that theater is not merely a prison, it is a gymnasium. Every man who has been asked to kneel for gifts he earned, every father told his authority is the problem, every builder ordered to praise the auditor, all of them are standing on a ladder they cannot yet see. The mechanism designed to disarm you can be read as a map of exactly what you must reclaim. The coordinator is stuck, so is the engineer who apologizes and disengages. Both are trapped at stages of development neither was taught to name. One mistakes his feelings for universal truth. The other mistakes his silence for virtue. The way out is not rage or compliance. It is seeing the whole architecture, how identity, competence, moral reasoning, and culture fit together and climbing past every stage that wants you small. I will not apologize for my competence again. I will plant what I know into the soil of the next generation. Build what needs building, and let the harvest answer the auditor. This is the first page of that reclamation, and every word from here forward is a tool for the man ready to climb. The error, standpoint, epistemology, privileging, positional identity, the situation. A mid-level DEI coordinator, 30s steam processed in corporate polish, leads a bias audit of a veteran engineering team. He demands the team acknowledge their positional advantage, white, male, cis, as epistemic blindness regardless of their actual competence. When a senior engineer, 40s, decorated father of 3, points out that the audit metrics are circular and ignore output quality, the coordinator dismisses him as defending the hierarchy and cites lived experience as superior to technical data. The engineer, instead of asserting authority or stepping back, apologizes, attends mandatory sensitivity training, and quietly disengages from mentorship. The team's output drops, loyalty fractures, and the coordinator's positional authority becomes a hollow ritual. Core contradiction. Standpoint epistemology claims that marginalized identity guarantees superior insight, yet it demands universal compliance from those it deems epistemically deficient. creating a hierarchy where the oppressed hold absolute authority over the oppressors without being subject to the same standards of proof or performance. Case vignette. The fluorescent panel above conference room 4C had been flickering for 3 weeks. Nobody had filed a ticket. The 12 engineers seated around the table had built systems that managed 9 figures of daily transaction volume. But the light above them was somebody else's problem, and anyway, it matched the hum of the projector. And anyway, the meeting would be over soon. That was the kind of small surrender that nobody tracks. Marcus Dean, 34, stood at the head of the table with the practiced stillness of a man who had attended a great many meetings before he was qualified to lead them. He wore a navy blazer over an open-collar shirt. His shoes were polished. His title, Director of Culture and Belonging, had been created 8 months ago, following a consultancy engagement that cost the company more than the entire annual bonus pool of the engineering team he was now auditing. He held a tablet at an angle that suggested he already knew what it said. So, Marcus said, with the calm first word of a man who expected all subsequent words to be his as well, "Thank you for making space for this. I know you're busy. I want to be clear up front that this isn't punitive. This is generative." Nobody nodded. Engineers are cautious with agreement until they've seen the equation. "I want to walk through the preliminary findings from our belonging climate survey." He tapped the tablet. A slide appeared, positional advantage and epistemic gaps in technical decision spaces. Some of the language might be new. That's okay, we're all learning. Dave Kovac, 46, principal engineer, 14 years. With the firm, holder of 2 patents in distributed systems recovery, father of 2 girls and a boy. The boy starting tackle football in August, which Dave had mentioned exactly once and then stopped mentioning because nobody at the office had asked a follow-up. Dave Kovac looked at the slide and said nothing. Dave had learned over years the value of silence in the first quarter of any meeting. Let the premise show itself. A premise, like a foundation crack, reveals more when you don't rush to patch it. Marcus continued. What the data shows, and we've been careful with the data, I want to stress that is a pattern, a consistent pattern. Your team is 91% male, 78% white or white passing, 0 openly non-heteronormative. And when we look at who speaks in architecture reviews, who gets interrupted, whose ideas get attributed to whom, well, he paused. The pause did work. There's a through line, a through line. Dave noted the word. It sounded structural. It was not. It was decorative. Now Marcus said, "I'm not here to blame anyone. Structural bias isn't about individual blame, but I do want to create space for reflection. I'd like each of you to consider your positional advantage and how it might be shaping what you consider good engineering." He said good engineering with a faint tilt of his head, the way a docent might say so-called art when introducing a piece that challenged convention. The quotation marks were audible. Elena Russ, the team's sole woman engineer, a quiet, meticulous back-end developer who had once rewrote the entire authentication pipeline over a weekend because the original architect had left a race condition that would have exposed user tokens under load. Elena Russ looked at the table. She had been told in 3 previous one-on-ones with Marcus that she was the team's canary. She had not asked to be a canary. She had asked once for better documentation tooling. That request had not generated a follow-up. Dave raised his hand. It was an old reflex. He could have just spoken. But something in the room's grammar had shifted, and the old reflex felt suddenly like a survival instinct. "Marcus, I've read through the survey instrument." Dave's voice was level. Not warm, not hostile. The voice of a man who had debugged systems at 3 in the morning and understood that emotion is a cost, not a signal, unless it is the only signal left. The response rate was 23%. Of that, the majority of free text responses came from 2 individuals. The metrics for attribution erasure and epistemic marginalization are self-reported perceptions, not tracked incidents. There's no control for project complexity for tenure, for whether the respondent had a deliverable rejected on technical grounds. I'm not saying people don't experience what they experience. I'm saying the instrument can't distinguish between bias and a denied pull request. The room was very still. The flickering light paused as if it too were waiting. Marcus smiled. The smile was warm in the way that a manual is comprehensive, technically sufficient, functionally useless. Dave, I appreciate that, and I want to sit with it for a second. He did not sit with it. What I'm hearing is a defense of the existing framework, and that's understandable. When you've benefited from a structure, questioning it feels like questioning yourself. But lived experience, the lived experience of colleagues who don't share your positional advantage, is data. It might not be the kind of data you're comfortable with, but discomfort is where growth happens. Dave said nothing. This was the second quarter of the meeting. The premise had shown itself. What I'd also note, Marcus continued, warming now to the rhythm of his own fluency, is that the instinct to demand quantitative proof of harm before acknowledging it is itself a culturally situated behavior. It's a way of centering one epistemology over another. And I think we need to be honest about what that centers. Integral diagnosis, the last honest war, the theory under examination. Standpoint, epistemology is the doctrine that your identity, your race, sex, sexuality, or position on the oppression chessboard determines your access to truth. Not your evidence, not your reasoning. Not your track record of building things that work, your position. The more marginalized the position, the keener the sight. The more privileged the position, the deeper the blindness. The word epistemology comes from the Greek episteme, knowledge, understanding, and logos, account, reason, ordered speech. Epistemology is the account of how we know what we know. Standpoint, epistemology replaces that account with a census. It does not ask, is your claim true? It asks, who are you and who is permitted to speak? This is not knowledge. This is a tribal headcount dressed in academic vestments. The theory emerged from Marxist roots, specifically from the Frankfurt School's expansion of class consciousness into identity consciousness, and from feminist standpoint theory in the 1980s, which argued that women's lived experience grants them epistemic authority that men cannot access. The kernel of partial truth, perspective matters. A man who has never been hungry does not know hunger the way a starving man does. Fair enough. But the ideological leap, therefore, the starving man's account of everything, economics, policy, human nature, metaphysics, is superior by virtue of his suffering. Suffering becomes a credential. Victimhood becomes a crown. The corruption is immediate. If identity guarantees insight, then disagreement is not error, it is violence. If lived experience is the highest court, then cross-examination is oppression. The standard dissolves. There is no falsifiability, no evidence that could disprove the claim, because the claim rests on an unfalsifiable assertion. You cannot understand because of who you are. The circle seals itself. The doctrine becomes a closed system, immune to reason, accountable to nothing. That is not an epistemology. That is a priesthood with no God but resentment, the developmental arrest. Consider the man who has absorbed this doctrine without naming it. He is competent, a builder, an engineer, a provider, but he has been trained to treat his competence as suspect. He sits in a room where a functionary with no knowledge of his craft audits his positional advantage and explains that his technical judgment is compromised by his identity. He knows this is false. He can see the circularity, but he has been stripped of the language and the moral confidence to say so. He apologizes, he attends the training. He quietly stops mentoring, he stops bringing his full intelligence to the room. He becomes what the system designs him to become, a technically excellent eunuch, producing just enough to avoid notice, withholding the generative force that made him valuable in the first place. This is developmental arrest. Not his fault entirely, but his responsibility now. The functionary is also arrested. He has been given authority without competence, a title without a trade, a pulpit without a theology. His power derives entirely from the doctrinal framework that declares his position epistemically privileged. He cannot test the framework without destroying his own authority. He is locked inside it, a prisoner who mistakes his self for a throne. Both men are stuck. The builder has surrendered his self-authorship to institutional approval. The functionary has surrendered his competence to ideological identity. Neither is growing, neither is producing truth, virtue, or legacy. The system that connects them does not want mature men. It wants compliant ones, compliant either through guilt or through grievance. the core contradiction. Standpoint epistemology contains a fatal self-contradiction, and it can be stated as a syllogism. Premise 1. Marginalized identity guarantees superior epistemic access, the central claim. Premise 2. This claim is asserted as universally true, binding on all persons, regardless of their identity position. Conclusion. A truth claim about the limits of identity-based knowledge is being asserted as universally valid, which means the claim must be accessible to anyone capable of reasoning regardless of their identity. The doctrine refutes itself. If identity determines truth, then the doctrine itself is merely the product of a particular identity position, and those outside it have no reason to accept it. But the doctrine demands universal compliance. It says, my position gives me unique access to truth, while insisting that everyone else must recognize that truth on pain of excommunication. This is not equality. This is a new hierarchy, one with no accountability, no due process, and no standard of evidence. The oppressed become infallible. The privileged become guilty by category. Disagreement becomes proof of guilt. The system is self-sealing, unfalsifiable, and immune to correction. It is in every functional sense a theocracy without a god, and the cost. The cost is borne by the men who build, maintain, and defend the structures everyone else inhabits. They are told their competence is complicity. They are told their silence is violence. They are told their authority is illegitimate. And when they withdraw, when they stop leading, mentoring, building, and risking, the structures sag, and the functionaries are surprised, and no one can find the crack because no one was permitted to name it. Nature is not bigotry, competence is not complicity, and truth does not check your identity papers before it becomes true. The integral map. A man stuck in this machinery is stuck at multiple developmental levels simultaneously. The trap is not just intellectual. It is cognitive, moral, psychological, spiritual, and structural. Name each layer, and you name the way out. Piaget, concrete operational arrest. The man treats identity labels as fixed objects that determine reality. White male becomes a concrete property, like mass or density, that dictates what he can know. The remedy, formal operational thought. Abstract away from the label and ask what the structure produces. Does this framework generate competence or collapse? Does it reward victory or the performance of defeat? The structure will tell you more than the label ever could. Kohlberg, conventional morality. The man seeks moral approval through compliance. He attends the training, signs the document, mouths the slogan, not because it is true, but because the group demands it and he fears exclusion. Stage 3, morality. Be a good boy, be liked, be safe. The remedy, post-conventional reasoning. Judge by principle and consequence. Be willing to be called unjust by people who mistake niceness for goodness. The knight is not nice, he is just. Kagan, the socialized mind. The man's self is constituted by institutional values. He holds opinions the culture handed him. He does not own his worldview. He rents it from HR, from the university, from the consensus. The remedy, the self-authoring mind. Define your own honor, duty, and truth. Generate an internal standard that does not bend when the culture's winds shift. Self-authorship is not selfishness. It is the prerequisite for service. A man who does not know what he stands for will fall for anything and serve no one well. Erickson's stagnation. The man is consumed by status games and identity panic, while the next generation goes unfathered, unmentored, unformed. He is not producing legacy. He is managing optics. The remedy, generativity. Build something that outlasts you. Teach a younger man what you bled to learn. Measure your life by what you leave behind, not by what you're permitted to say. Freud's superego tyranny. The internalized voice of the therapeutic state floods him with guilt for natural drives, for ambition, for authority, for the desire to build and lead and protect. The superego whispers that his competence is violence. His reticence is complicity. His silence is sin. The remedy, strengthen the ego. Mediate between primal drive and cultural demand. Sublimate anger into disciplined labor. Anger is fuel. It is not a flaw. Young shadow projection. The man projects his own weakness onto the system. He blames the culture, the HR department, the feminists, naming real distortions but refusing to own his own complicity in his disarmament. He chose compliance. He chose silence. He chose the sensitivity badge over the sword, the remedy, shadow integration. Confess your capacity for cowardice, for self-deception, for the cowardice of respectability. Own your darkness. Then wield your light with precision rather than sentimentality. Adla inferiority compensation. The man compensates for felt inadequacy by seeking institutional validation, the promotion, the certificate, the performance review that says collaborative. He measures his worth by recognition rather than contribution. The remedy, serve anonymously for 1 month. Let no one know what you did. Let contribution, not applause, measure your worth. Spiral dynamics, green meme capture. The pluralistic green worldview fragments reality into competing victim narratives. Every perspective is valid. No standard adjudicates between them. Hierarchy is oppression. Excellence is exclusion. The result, paralysis dressed as compassion. The remedy, ascend to integral thinking. Coordinate multiple perspectives while maintaining a spine of non-negotiable principle. Not all perspectives are equal. Some build, some destroy. Learn to tell the difference without apology. Lovinger, Hook-Grutter, conformist ego. The man is bound by group consensus. He is terrified of standing alone with an unpopular truth. He would rather be wrong in a crowd than right by himself. The remedy, the autonomous stage. Tolerate paradox, hold competing claims. See the limits of your own worldview without dissolving into relativism. The mature mind does not need the crowd's permission to see clearly. Maslow, deficiency needs. The man orbits belonging and esteem, seeking validation through conformity and approval. He cannot ascend to truth because he is still negotiating acceptance. The remedy, aim at self-transcendence. Pursue truth, beauty, and virtue for their own sake, beyond any reward the system can grant or withhold. The system's currency inflates to zero. Virtue holds its value. Fowler, synthetic conventional faith. The man's worldview is inherited and unexamined. He wears belief like a costume, progressive, conservative, whatever the room demands. He has never taken personal ownership of what he believes. The remedy, individuative reflective faith. Doubt honestly. Forge convictions that survive fire. A belief you have never tested is not yours. It is borrowed clothing. Commons, low, hierarchical complexity. The man cannot coordinate abstract systems. He reduces complexity to slogans. Oppressor, oppressed, privilege, disadvantage, inclusive, exclusive. Binary maps for a multidimensional world. The remedy, practice hierarchical complexity. Map the logic of competing systems simultaneously. Hold the whole field in your mind. Then act. Gebser, mental rational lock. The man overanalyzes without presence. He argues without being. He lives in the narrative, the abstract, the spectating intellect. Never in the room, never in the body, never in the moment of decision. The remedy, integral awareness. Step outside the myth you are living. See the whole field, including your own role in the drama. Act from presence, not from script. Trivium, grammar without logic or rhetoric. The man accumulates facts and vocabulary, equity. Lived experience, intersectionality, positionality, without understanding the logical structure beneath them, or the rhetoric needed to move men with truth. He is armed with nouns and defenseless against arguments. The remedy, master all three arts, know the grammar of reality, define your terms relentlessly, trace etymologies, refuse stolen words. Test the logic of every claim, demand non-contradiction, causality, evidence, falsifiability. Then wield rhetoric that makes truth memorable, compelling, and impossible to dismiss. Grammar is knowing, logic is understanding. Rhetoric is doing. A man who has all three is dangerous to every lie. What men can learn from the dysfunction teaches by negation. It shows you what happens when development fails at every level. Cognition collapses into tribal label, morality collapses into compliance, identity collapses into institution, legacy collapses into optics. And the masculine drive collapses into either rage or apology. The lesson is not anger. Anger is fuel, not a destination. The lesson is diagnosis. You must be able to name the machinery that arrested you, not to rage at it, but to stop feeding it and start building what replaces it. Here is the pattern. Ideology captures language. Language shapes thought. Thought shapes identity. Identity shapes action. If you want to change the action, you must change the language. If you want to change the language, you must recover the definitions that ideology stole. Equality once meant equal dignity before law and God. Now it means sameness of outcome enforced by bureaucracy. Safety once meant freedom from genuine harm. Now it means immunity from disagreement. Justice once meant giving each his due according to truth. Now it means redistributing status according to grievance. Take the words back. Define them, test them, speak them with force. A man who controls his definitions controls his mind. A man who controls his mind cannot be colonized. Practice ladder for men. The fourfold ladder: grow up, wake up, clean up, show up. Step 1, name the false self. Grow up, you are not your job title, your relationship status, your trauma narrative, or your ideological badge. Keegan calls this the socialized mind, the stage where the institution holds your identity like a landlord holds a lease. You work for the DEI coordinator's approval. You work for your ex-wife's peace. You work for the algorithm's dopamine. None of it is you. Do today. Write down every label you use to describe yourself. When someone asks, "Who are you?" cross out every one that depends on another person's opinion. What remains, however thin, is your starting material. Step 2, reclaim the body, wake up. Maslow's hierarchy begins with physiology, yet most men live entirely in their heads, reacting to screens, processing grievances, rehearsing arguments. Your body is not a transport mechanism for your anxieties. Gebser's mental structure of consciousness has divorced you from the somatic, the archaic, the real. Return. Do today. Train to failure. Lift, run, or hit something heavy until your body demands precedence over your thoughts. Note what silence follows. Step 3. Own the shadow. Clean up. Jung's warning. What you do not bring to consciousness appears in your life as fate. You disown your aggression and it becomes passive sabotage. You disown your lust and it becomes pornography. You disown your capacity for cruelty and it becomes a malicious compliance that poisons your household. The shadow is not eliminated. It is integrated, harnessed, disciplined, aimed. Do today. Identify one trait you despise in others. Spend 10 minutes writing about how that trait lives in you, how you act it out covertly, and what legitimate function it serves when governed properly. Step 4. Sublimate the drives, clean up. Freud's observation that civilization requires sublimirung, the channeling of raw instinct into constructive work, is not repression. It is metallurgy. The blacksmith does not destroy the fire. He contains it, aims it, and lets it forge. Your anger is fuel. Your desire is fuel. Your fear of insignificance is fuel. Uncontained, they burn your house down. Aimed, they build cathedrals. Do today. Take one consuming drive, lust, resentment, status, hunger, and redirect its energy into 1 hour of deliberate craft or physical training. Repeat until the redirection becomes reflex. Step 5. Develop self-authorship. Grow up. Move from Keegan's socialized mind to the self-authoring mind. Stop borrowing your values from the institution, the movement, the ex-wife, the podcast. Generate an internal code, written, specific, testable, that you will obey regardless of applause or condemnation. This is not selfishness. A man who cannot govern himself cannot genuinely serve anyone. He can only comply, and compliance dressed as service is servility. Do today. Write your personal code in 12 lines or fewer. Include what you will produce, what you will refuse, what you will protect, and what you will die before betraying. Read it aloud tomorrow morning. Step 6. Upgrade your thinking. Grow up. Piaget's formal operational stage. The ability to think about thinking, to analyze systems abstractly, to hold variables in tension is not guaranteed by age. Many men in their 30s and 40s still reason in concrete operational terms, identity tags, tribal loyalty, simple cause and effect narratives. They hate us because we're men, sometimes true, always incomplete. The formal operational man asks, what structure produces this outcome? What incentives are in play? What would I need to be wrong about? Do today. Take one belief you hold strongly. Write 3 paragraphs arguing the strongest possible case against it. If you cannot, you do not understand the belief, you are possessed by it. Step 7. Move to principled morality. Grow up. Kohlberg's post-conventional stages, where morality is judged by universal principles rather than social approval or legal compliance, is where the man separates from the boy. The conventional man asks, will I get in trouble? The post-conventional man asks, is this just, true, and rightly ordered? He is willing to be called unfair by those who benefit from injustice. He is willing to be called extreme by those who have never tested the center. Do today. Identify one situation where you are complying with a rule you know to be unjust or irrational. Document it. Decide. Obey strategically, resist lawfully, or leave cleanly, but do not pretend compliance is virtue. Step 8. Build competence before demanding authority. Show up. Adler knew that inferiority is the universal human condition, but that compensation, the drive to overcome through genuine mastery, separates the courageous from the resentful. You do not deserve authority because you are male. You earn it by producing what others cannot or will not. Spiral dynamics achievement stage, orange, has one virtue, the pluralist stage. Green cannot replicate, it delivers results. Competence is the universal currency that crosses every ideological border. Do today. Identify one skill gap that undermines your authority: financial literacy, physical conditioning, legal knowledge, a trade. Public speaking. Schedule 1 hour of deliberate practice today, not reading about it. Doing it. Step 9. Embrace generativity. Show up. Erickson's generativity versus stagnation is the crisis of the mature man. Will you produce, protect, and guide the next generation, or will you consume, decay, and complain? Stagnation disguises itself as rest, as self-care, as working on myself. But the man who never turns outward, who never builds something that outlasts him, who never mentors, who never fathers in the deepest sense, corrodes from the inside. Compact stage map. Wilbur, H-E-O-L, you live in narrative and feeling, while your body softens and your output shrinks. Integrate all 4 quadrants daily. Train the body, sharpen the mind, produce visible work, and judge the system by its fruit. Piaget, you treat identity labels as concrete objects that determine truth rather than understanding the abstract architecture beneath them. Practice formal operational thought. Ask what structure produces victory or collapse, not what structure feels fair. Kohlberg, you remain at the conventional stage, seeking moral approval through compliance and perform sensitivity. Move to post-conventional reasoning, judge by principle and consequence, and be willing to be called unjust by those who mistake niceness for goodness. Kigan, your self is constituted by institutional values. You hold opinions the culture handed you and call them your own. Develop the self-authoring mind. Define your honor, duty, and truth independent of the crowd's applause or its rage. Erickson, you stole in stagnation, consumed by status games and identity panic, while the next generation goes unformed, unmentored, and unfathered. Embrace generativity. Build something that outlasts you. Teach a younger man what you bled to learn, and measure your life by legacy rather than recognition. Freud, the superego of the therapeutic state tyrannizes your ego, flooding you with guilt for drives that are natural while suppressing the energy you need to act. Strengthen the ego, mediate between primal drive and cultural demand, and sublimate anger into disciplined labor. Jung, you project your own weakness onto systems and structures, blaming the patriarchy or the conspiracy rather than owning your shadow. Integrate the shadow. Confess your capacity for cruelty, cowardice, and error. Then wield your light with precision rather than sentimentality. Adler, you compensate for felt inferiority by seeking ideological status and institutional validation rather than building genuine competence. Serve anonymously for 1 month. Let contribution, not recognition, measure your worth. Leuvinger, Cook, Grutter, you remain at the conformist stage, bound by group consensus and terrified of standing alone with an unpopular truth. Move toward the autonomous stage. Tolerate paradox, hold competing claims, and see the limits of your own worldview without dissolving into relativism. Graves' spiral dynamics, you are trapped in the pluralistic green meme, fragmenting reality into competing victim narratives with no principle to adjudicate between them. Ascend to integral YOLO thinking, coordinate multiple perspectives while maintaining a spine of non-negotiable principle. Maslow, you orbit deficiency needs, seeking belonging and esteem through ideological conformity and female approval. Aim at self-transcendence, pursue truth, beauty, and virtue for their own sake, beyond any reward the system can grant or withhold. Fowler, your faith remains synthetic conventional, inherited and unexamined, a costume of belief you wear for social cover. Move to individuative reflective faith. Take personal ownership of what you believe, doubt honestly, and forge convictions that survive fire. Commons, you cannot coordinate abstract systems, reducing complexity to slogans and binary oppressed maps. Practice hierarchical complexity. Map the logic of competing systems simultaneously, then integrate them into actionable strategy. Gibser, you remain locked in the mental rational structure, overanalyzing without presence, arguing without being. Cultivate integral awareness. Step outside the myth you are living. See the whole field including your own role in it, and act from presence rather than narrative. Trivium, you accumulate facts and vocabulary without understanding the logical structure beneath them or the rhetoric needed to move men. Master all three. Know the grammar of reality. Test the logic of claims and wield rhetoric that makes truth memorable and compelling. I have no more quarrel with the age than a physician has with a fever. The fever does its work. The physician does his. What I have written here is not a manifesto for resentment, but a diagnosis followed by a prescription. And the prescription is older than every ideology currently leasing space in your university, your HR department, and your smartphone. You did not ask to be born into a civilization that forgot its own operating instructions, but here you are, and here is the ladder out. Sponsored book, The 100 Years' War, Chrissy Agincourt, the last honest war fought by men without excuses. You think war is about peace. You think courage is about not being afraid. You think leadership is about inclusivity. You are wrong. War is about dominance. Courage is about action, despite fear. Leadership is about making decisions that others cannot bear to make. I learned this not from a classroom, not from a TED Talk, not from a diversity seminar, but from standing in the mud of Agincourt, not in 1415, but in 2019, when I walked the field where 6,000 Englishmen broke 20,000 French knights with arrows, grit, and a king who fought beside them. I stood there in silence. No speeches, no hashtags. Just the wind, the soil, and the ghosts of men who didn't wait for permission to be strong. I didn't write this book for everyone. I wrote it for men who are tired of being told they are the problem. Tired of being shamed for ambition, for strength, for wanting to lead. Tired of being told their instincts are toxic, their confidence is arrogance, their desire to protect is oppression. I am not here to soothe your guilt. I am here to dismantle it. The 100 Years' War was not fought by committees, by sensitivity trainers, by men who cried in therapy and called it bravery. It was fought by men who knew death was coming and walked toward it anyway. Men who didn't outsource courage to algorithms or morality to social media. Men who understood that weakness in war means death, and weakness in society means decay. This is not a history book in the way schools teach history. This is a mirror. It shows you what men once were and what most men are not today. The longbow required 150 pounds of pull force. It took years to master. It demanded physical strength, relentless practice, and a will forged in pain. The modern man cannot even hold a plank for 2 minutes. He scrolls, he consumes, he complains, he waits for someone to empower him. The men of Chrissy didn't wait. They acted, they bled, they won. And they did not apologize for it. You will read about kings who fought in the front lines. Edward III, Henry V, men who led with steel in their hands, not slogans on their lips. They didn't hide behind PR teams. They didn't blame fate. They took responsibility, and when they lost, they died trying. That kind of leadership is extinct today. replaced by bureaucrats who measure success by diversity quotas and engagement metrics. If you are a man who still believes strength matters, who still believes in hierarchy, in duty, in excellence, this book is for you. If you are someone who believes gender is a social construct, that power is oppression, that equality is the highest good, then close this book now, walk away. Go write poetry about your feelings, join a support group. This is not for you. This book is not interested in your approval. It is not designed to make you feel safe. It will not validate your ideology. It is written for men who are done with lies. Men who understand that nature is not fair, that life is not equal, and that strength is not a crime. We will dissect the psychology of the warrior, not the modern version who wears a helmet and cries about trauma, but the ancient one who knew that honor was not given, it was earned in blood. We will expose the myth of progress, the lie that we are morally superior to men of the past. We are not. We are softer. We are weaker. We have more comfort, but less character. And because of that, we are losing, not to enemies with swords, but to decay from within. The family collapses, loyalty evaporates, men retreat, women dominate, and no one dares speak the truth. This book will not make you popular. It will not make you liked, but it will make you clear. It will show you what dominance looks like, not as a dirty word, but as a biological imperative. It will teach you that guilt is not a moral compass. It is a weapon used against men to control them. That sensitivity is not wisdom. It is a disease that spreads when men stop protecting what matters. If you are ready to stop apologizing for being a man, if you are ready to reclaim strength without shame, if you are ready to study the last honest war, a war fought without excuses, without victimhood, without therapy speak, then read on. The truth is not kind, but it is real, and only the real can save you. The 100 Years' War, Chrissy Agincourt, The Last Honest War Fought by Men Without Excuses, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now. Links in description.